Welcome to Give Me Hope with your host and author, Johanna Vendel. Come join the conversation as Johanna focuses on sharing impactful personal narratives of loss. Her platform provides a safe space for individuals to express themselves, find comfort, and build connections as they navigate their grief journey. So now, please welcome the host of Give Me Hope, Johanna Vendel.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to Give Me Hope with Johanna. Well, I was just in Hollywood last week for my book award that I received for International Impact Book Awards, and we had our Oscars there in Hollywood. I walked the Hollywood Boulevard, and oh my word, was that an amazing walk that I did. And just thinking about all the dreams that eventually can come true if you focus on working on that dream, because if you don't make the dream happen, it definitely cannot come true. Today, I have a South African lady with a big dream that came true yesterday, and I am going to introduce her in Afrikaans, which is the South African language. So baie welkom by ons Ilda Diffley.
Baie dankie. Ek is baie bly om op jou podcast te wees, Johanna.
Well,
Johanna.
Johanna. Well, welcome Ilda, and once again, congratulations on everything that you've accomplished. Would you like to introduce yourself to my viewers and tell them where everything started?
I mean, yes, it is a little bit of a pinch yourself moment, I guess. You know, when you see your movie drops on Netflix and you see your name in the end credits as producer, definitely there's a moment of like, oh yeah, I always did have this dream. I don't know that I think about it as the dream has come true because I always feel like what's next and how do I pay my bills? And so I think it's the sort of it's the beauty of doing something that you really love and that you've always wanted to do. I think I
Yes.
have to take the time to be really grateful and I do have to like remind myself sometimes that I worked really hard and it was really tough to get here. And you know, when you say get here, I'm like, well, you compare yourself to everyone else that have done so much more than you did. But I think I feel quite proud this weekend. I
Yeah.
grew up in Kuilsrivier. I was born in Johannesburg and then grew up in Kuilsrivier and always wanted to work in the film and television industry.
Okay.
Literally, since I was very little, I wanted to act, I liked to write, I would put on little, plays in school. I was the head of my drama club, I would direct, I would write plays. I always knew it was what I wanted to do. And I think, then you always dream of Hollywood, I guess.
Yes. So, first, I also just want to introduce you as a producer.
Yes,
I
I
saw
produce.
your name on the screen last night when I was watching the movie.
Yeah, I got a pretty nice credit. Yeah.
Wow.
I've had credits before and they're very small. This is a nice big one.
You want to tell the viewers what the movie's name is?
Yeah, it's The Woman in Cabin 10 with Keira Knightley.
Yes,
Yeah.
it just premiered on Netflix last night, and I watched it. And I must tell you that I was on the edge of my seat quite quite a few times there. It already starts in the beginning. It already starts with like you can feel that there's something coming.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I
Wow.
I'm happy to hear that, you felt the tension.
Yes, I felt the tension from the start. I could feel that. I was first thinking, oh my word, is it going to be a thriller or something like that? But it's definitely conspiracy and um, how can I
Mystery.
say mystery? Yes, there's the correct word. Well, wow, this is such an achievement, Ilda. Um, so when did you move to America?
So I actually after I graduated university, and actually that has a South African tie-in.
And
I
where
had
did you graduate?
I went to Rhodes University, and
Okay.
at the time I met the playwright Dion Opperman. And and I
Wow.
so Dion, I always think, I don't know if he even realizes the impact he had on my life. But I met Dion at Rhodes, and we did Grahamstown Arts Festival every year, and we would either have our own productions or we would interview other playwrights for various, campus media. And I met Dion, and he put me in touch with a South African in Washington, D.C., who sponsored my first work permit. So it was my first job out of college was to work as a journalist for
Wow.
South African newspapers in Washington, D.C., and that was under my maiden name, Ilda Jacobs.
Okay.
So,
And that was in the year?
well, I don't like to give the exact dates because then I give away my age. And it's Hollywood. We age backwards. We
Uh,
it's,
they say you start to age at 28 and then everything just goes backwards.
we joke about it. I usually joke about it. I'm like, well, I just turned 28 again, then I turned 35 again. But yeah, so it was in the 2000s. I came
Okay. Wow. So that's quite a long time already that you've then been in America.
Yeah, and then I met my husband and we got married. Um, while I was on this working permit. So we got married in 2005. And so it's our 20th anniversary this year. And
Wow.
once
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. So once I realized like I wasn't gonna go back, I always thought I would just go back and work in the South African film and television industry. And once I realized I had to build a career here, we decided to try to move to Los Angeles and
Closer
start
to the
from.
stars.
Yeah, so then we moved out here in 2007. And I had to figure out how on earth do you get a job when you don't know anybody in a city like Los Angeles?
Yes.
So,
That is really difficult, when you don't know anyone. For me, also coming from South Africa, starting from scratch, and you build a life. So many people knew me in South Africa, and I built a name for myself in the skincare, cosmetic industry, and therapy industry. And then I came here, and I had to start from scratch. I had to go work for someone again in a chiropractic office as a massage therapist, and I trained massage therapist to become massage therapist, and here I had to start all from scratch again. And I always say that I'm just this person in a room massaging someone. But by the end of the day, if you look at my background, also, I have become quite a lot in the last few years because I'm not just sitting still.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's so true. I'm so inspired by your story because I think if you come here, you realize like you really just have to hustle. It's the constant hustle.
Yes,
You just have
definitely.
to think in a really entrepreneurial way every day.
Yes.
So I hear you, and I think the other thing to mention is, and I'm sure you went through this, when you then start out again and you start from the bottom,
Hmm.
it's very entry level money. So it's very, very challenging.
It's very challenging, and I have written 4 books in the last 2 years because I've also left South Africa for different reasons, but mostly it was because there was just so many things that happened in my life, and shootings and things that I have been involved with, and my mom that got shot, my sister got hijacked and she died. And I am only 52 years old this year, and I've lost my entire family of six people: my mom, dad, three sisters, and my brother. And I think just that stress can also kill you so fast. And being in America, and with my stress levels from South Africa, that has dropped so much. I started to live again. I had a tough 5 years now, since I've lost my entire family. But I also wrote my book and my stories. And my three books is also about my life and how I lost my entire family. But the third book is where I got out of my grud that I was in. And
Mm.
I stood up and I just started to also say, I want to have a better life. It's all about what you do in your life. Like, I mean, you came here and you, in South Africa, the dreams aren't as big as in America with all the movie stars and things like that. I can remember when I was also little. And you just telling me now about how you did plays and you had your dream and everything. Do you have a dream of still acting yourself as well?
That's for probably the last 15 years, I have not wanted to do anything except produce. But since 2020 so 2020 was really I feel like a turning point in my life, um, with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the last 5 years, I have thought about how do you nurture your creativity, right? And what are those things that will make you excited to do something new, right? I have done this for a long time, and Hollywood is a really tough city. So I
Yeah.
have thought about like, what can I do? And I'm sure you find this, Joanna, that when you do something like write, or when you do have a creative outlet, it
Mm-hmm.
really, I really believe in story's ability to heal people and to
Oh, yes,
change hearts and change minds. And for us, it's a tool we have to process the world. I really do.
definitely.
And I think different stories do different things, right? Like
Yes.
some people,
I can definitely tell you I'm an example of that. I am this broken person inside of me, but look at what I have done now. And I decided that we can't get yesterday back. So what is the use of trying to live in the past?
mm,
Because if you don't live for today, then you never know how far you could come and how your life can turn out to be. And yeah,
mm.
producing movies and things like that. That's amazing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the movie itself?
Oh, yes, yeah, happy to. So, this is not a story that's going to heal the world or change the world or change hearts and minds, but I think that, like I said, I think there's different roles for stories in society and different.
Definitely.
For me, coming back to the pandemic in 2020, I watched a lot of like Great British Baking Show because it was helping me to deal with grief and stress and loss. And I think for me, something like The Woman in Cabin 10, this is a popcorn thriller that offers escapism, right? And I think
Yes.
we go through hard things such as a pandemic, such as wars, personal trauma, or even just struggling with your own personal demons. I
Mm,
think very often you can't underestimate the role of just reading or watching something that allows you for a moment to live in someone else's shoes, or have some wish fulfillment. So for me, The Woman in Cabin 10 was definitely a little bit of like, it's not high art. It's just meant to be fun. It just wants to be something you enjoy. And I do think its theme is still important. I think it's about a woman who is not believed, and I think is every woman in the world can relate to that. We've all been in situations where we are underestimated and
Yes,
we aren't believed.
yes.
I think while it's not high art, I do think it gives you vindication, right?
Yes, and it's so easy, for someone to manipulate you. And no, there was nobody by that name or that picture. There's nobody like that on the ship.
Yeah.
And it's like, did I now see her or not? So you really get confused. I think you can be manipulated in true life. There are so many people that can manipulate people like that, but at the end, if you did something wrong, you're always going to be caught. Doesn't matter when, can be years maybe, but eventually you're going to be caught. So in the first place, don't do it.
Yeah. Yes, that was one of the things that our director, Simon Stone, he is a wunderkind in theatre. And when we met Simon, the first thing he told us was that he wanted Kira, her character. We didn't have Kira cast at the time. He just wanted the character from the book.
Mm,
Be someone who was like a dog with a bone, who wouldn't let go. She knew what she saw, and even if everyone else was going to doubt her and gaslight her, and even if she didn't really fit in,
mm-hmm.
she was going to bet on herself. And that was
Yes.
gonna lead her looking into what happened. And I think that to me is something that that was the spirit of the book as well, despite the fact that people gaslight you and the people
Mm,
don't believe you, the character essentially knows her own truth
yes.
and
Wow.
isn't gonna let anybody else distract her from her goal. So I think there is something quite relatable to that as well.
Yes, and she definitely played the role so, so
Oh,
good.
she's really good. Kira is really good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow, wow.
yeah, she plays it all on her face. The sort of backstory of trauma, the paranoia. I mean, she's just an actress that can, I think, act out all the different psychological layers with like one facial expression.
Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of noticed that her face was quite a lot in the movie, especially with those expressions that you're talking about. She's an amazing actress. I've seen some of her other movies as well, and she's
Yeah.
just so, so gorgeous.
She really is. She really is very talented, and that was a very deliberate decision to play the movie on her face so much so that we
Mm.
could feel like we were in her point of view.
Yes, yes, definitely. She telling the story. It's her life story.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
wow. That is amazing. And people like you are never really noticed in movies like that. I mean, and look at what became of this movie now, and
yeah.
how well produced and directed it was. And it's impactful, to think that yeah, you are, and nobody even knows who is in the background. And I think sometimes people
Right,
in the background is almost more important than the people that actually plays the part. And that is why I am so grateful to have you here and telling your personal story. Um, and you said that you've also had loss in your life. Earlier, you said that you needed to do this because you also needed to get over grief and loss.
yeah. So for me, so you work your whole career and you get to this point where you have a number of projects lined up, and in 2020, when the pandemic broke out, I actually had my youngest son, who's 5 now, on March 11th, 2020, when the world was shutting down, when they announced the global pandemic.
Mm.
And I had, he was my rainbow baby. I had had a traumatic miscarriage
Oh,
in 2018 that,
I'm
where
sorry about
I
that.
had heard the little baby's heartbeat at 8 weeks, and then at 10 weeks, there was no heartbeat. And I was really struggling to get over it. And I, it really was something that I felt like people don't really talk about much. And it sort of made me question everything, right? Like, I had my first son in 2016, he's 9 now. And and that already was like how it changed how I looked at the world. I was like, I just want to I like this. I no longer was chasing, fame
Mm.
or driven by ambition. I really started feeling like I just wanted to be a good person in the world. That was how motherhood changed me. I just wanted to raise a son who would be a kind and generous and empathetic human. And then I went through this personal loss in 2018. And when I had my youngest, who's now 5, um, I was really looking forward to it. I felt like, my parents were going to come from South Africa and they were going to stay with us for 2 months to help a little bit with this little
Mm.
baby. And unfortunately the world shut down, right? And South Africans couldn't travel to the States. And I was really worried. My grandmother was in uh, uh, a hospice essentially in South Africa in Meyerton. And my mom's sister lived in Meyerton with near her, but no one could see my grandmother at the time, right? Because
Oh,
of how dangerous it was. And then, so I had this baby. I was terrified the whole time because we didn't know what COVID could do, what it couldn't do. I didn't want to go outside. I started feeling where I was so excited to have this baby. I really had postpartum anxiety, not even
mm.
depression, just anxiety.
Yes.
And then 3 months into it, I had to, when in the United States, you get very little maternity leave. So 12 weeks into my pregnancy, I went back to work, and I was back at work for, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks. And we got the call that there was a COVID outbreak in my grandmother's hospice.
Oh,
And when I called her, I mean, I can't even explain to you the cough that she had. Like I knew she had gotten this virus.
wow.
And um and a week later she passed away. She
Oh,
was hospitalized, and then I think that was the roller coaster of it all, right? Like she was hospitalized,
mm.
and then they actually let her go home, you know, because I think she wasn't critical. She didn't have to be in ER. So I actually thought, oh, maybe she's recovering, but that was how the virus was so insidious. Like she just got worse. So my grandmother died in July of 2020. And then 6 months later, my mom's sister, when South Africa went through like the first round, sort of calmed down and people started socializing again and kids went back to school. And my mom's sister, who was my godmother that I was really, really very close to, she passed away in December 2020 of COVID.
Oh,
And so this is all with like a little kid who's under 1 year old, a little baby. I hadn't been able to see my family. I hadn't been able to go home. Um,
to
then
share
my
your happiness.
to share the happiness. So I was absolutely miserable. Then my cousin was really sick. She had little clots from COVID. And she had, the breathlessness, and she was young. She was in her 30s. And then her brother was hospitalized with COVID, and he was on a respirate on a one of those big, I forget what
Respirators,
they call
yeah.
them. Yeah. He was on that. He was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and we thought he wasn't going to make it. And that was the beginning of 21 for me and my family. So I felt like I never slept. I felt like not only did I have this baby who I had to like, who I wasn't sleeping anyway,
Who
but
sleeps
then
with a newborn baby?
through
Not
this,
many
oh,
mommies.
yeah, we were going through all this family trauma, and then I got laid off.
Mm.
And February 21, the company that I was working for as a development producer laid me off. So my baby wasn't even one. And so it was just February 20, it was a day before my birthday that I got laid off.
Oh,
And I just felt really overwhelmed by everything. I felt overwhelmed by COVID and how scared it made me constantly. And because of all the family trauma,
mm,
and felt really alone because I hadn't been able to see my family. And my kids were growing up with not even knowing their family. Um, and then I got laid off. So I think that was the time where you sort of you have to ask yourself, so what do I want? What is important in life for me? And I realized I wanted like a better work-life balance. And I also realized that I wanted to work like at a company that would value me, because I think sometimes we especially when you've just got to pay the bills, and you're so focused on like the sort of daily grind, you,
yes,
you forget that you should be valued. And
yes.
and in a place like America, I think you can go and look for another job, right? You have to say, I know it's really difficult, but you have to say to yourself, I don't think I'm being valued enough.
I
I
always say that you have to value yourself, and doesn't matter what people think about you, always stand up for yourself because nobody can just judge you by a book cover.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
about start to speak to me and start to get to know who I am. And then you're going to start to see the value of that person is when you actually interact with that person.
Hmm.
And it is amazing. I mean, 2020 was also the year that I lost my little sister. I was actually in South Africa on March 11th, burying my little sister.
Oh,
We had a funeral on the 10th, and everything happened. And I'm like, oh my word, I have to get back to America before they close the gates because were talking about closing the gates. And I flew back just in time on the 18th of March. And with COVID, there were so many deaths and friends that died and families and things like that that one didn't really realize that you have to now grieve about something because everything was so rushed. And then also October of 2020, I lost my brother through his lungs started to fill up so much and they couldn't do anything for him. And he said he wanted to go home and 2 days home. And I spoke to him. He could hardly speak. You could hear, like you said earlier, you could hear that lungs were filled up with water so much, and lost my brother then at
oh
um,
my gosh.
on the 26th of October there of 2020 as well. And they were the last two that I had left in my life, being in America then for 4 years. Lost all my siblings and my parents, and they all gone. But
Oh my God.
it's stories like this, and that's why my podcast is called "Give Me Hope" with
Yeah,
Johanna.
yeah,
Is because where were you, and where are you now? You
yeah,
know,
yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a, I think, and maybe the where are you now is kind of coupled with, for me, because I'm not at home with my family, with my parents. They live near Hermanus. If I
beautiful place.
because I'm not with them and not with my brother, and I miss out on my brother's kids growing up. I think that was sort of the big turning point for me in 21 as well, where I felt like you have to make it worthwhile, and you have to find the sort of daily joy and
Mm,
the daily rewards in what you and who you
have.
are and what you have in your community.
Mm.
Um,
It's about appreciating what you have. It's like I said earlier, you've you've lost a lot in your life. You've gone through much in your life, but it depends on what you do with it. Are you going to go sit in a corner and feel sorry for yourself? I was there, but I needed to get out of it. And I decided that, and the only way how I was possible to do this is to actually look who is in my life. And it was God. God was always there. He was holding me and caring for me and making sure that I realized that there's more to life than sitting in a corner and feeling sorry for yourself. And I got up, and I believe that my life changed after I had that thought. We
Yeah.
shouldn't live for yesterday. We should just get up and do the
Yeah.
best we can for today. Even if your family is in South Africa now, you feel that you miss them so much, but believe me if I say they miss you too, but they are so proud of what you have done for yourself. And I mean, look at this now. This is amazing, a movie with a famous actress. It's just going to go wild. You're going to see this is going to become a number one movie, and you never know. You might also receive an Oscar or something for your hard work. And then you know what you've worked for, when things
Oh,
like that happen, because I'm
oh.
sure you will be invited to things like that. It
Well,
was,
I think the the two things I want to come back to what you just said that really resonated with me is you were saying like how God didn't want you to sit in the corner. I think for me when the pandemic happened, it was the worst time, but it was also the most joyful time because I had this little rainbow miracle baby, right? Like I
mhm,
didn't think I was going to be able to have him, and we had to talk through the like, do we try IVF to have another one, and what is it going to take? Like I felt my biological clock ticking, and God gave me that baby. And so while it was the hardest time, I had I always call him, he's my little rainbow. And all I need to do when I sometimes feel overwhelmed by the state of the world or overwhelmed by, what am I going to do next? How am I going to pay the bills? Then that gives me strength to look at my little boys' faces and go, you got to you got to think about how we all can make the world a better place for these kids. They
yes,
didn't mess up the world. They deserve.
yes. I always say God takes from us like He takes our loved ones. But with me, every loved one that I have lost, God has replaced them with someone new in my life, like my four children and my two grandchildren. I lost
Oh,
six, and He gave me six back, so just thinking about that, is already so overwhelming, and one must just stand back and look at your blessings in life, and then you'll realize that life is not that bad.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Every day you have to be grateful for that.
Yes.
I love that you have four kids and two grandkids. I started too late, so I only have two little boys, and I also have a stepdaughter. I feel we have so much to be grateful for, you know.
Yes.
So much.
Well, I will show a few pictures to the people that you given me so that they can see how you worked behind the scenes a little bit. So let's show them quickly. Do you want to explain to us what a producer does? Because I mean, you get your director, you get your producer, but and then you get your actors and actresses and all of that. I know what they do, but tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about what is a producer's work.
Yes, I think I think I want to explain to people because when I moved to Hollywood, I I did think, oh, do I pursue, what do I want to do that's creative? And I realized very quickly I didn't want to be the on-set person who does the budgets, right? And I thought, oh, well, that's what a producer does. When I moved here and I started from the bottom, you start as an assistant. And what I quickly realized is that often the first people to identify the article or the book or the script that becomes a film or a television show are the creative producers.
Mm.
So very often you work for years on a screenplay with your writer or with
Mm.
your director. Very often you run around with a book and you try to get someone to come on and say yes and say they'll direct it for you or they'll write it for you. So you live with this story
Yes.
a number of years. And then once you have a screenplay, then you've got to go find a financier. And that's the producer does all of that. You've got to go find a studio to distribute it. You've got to go find, a director or an actor. Like so you were part of the inception of an idea.
Yes.
You were with it all the way until release. Now sometimes you get laid off and then you don't get to do that. Which has happened when you have to give up your children, essentially. And sometimes if a company is very nice, they'll let you take your projects and stay involved with them. But I think that is the thing when you were talking earlier about the behind the scenes.
Mm.
I don't mind being behind the scenes. I don't need to be in the limelight. I don't need to, do interviews. What I want is for the stories for whatever reason, it resonates with me, and I decide to tell this story. Those are the ones that you want to see them come to life, and you want to see
Yes.
them become a film or a television show.
Yes. Me
So
being a writer as well, and I've only started last year because of everything that happened in my life. I have 6 stories, and I've already turned one of my sad stories into a murder mystery as well. And I still have 5 different stories that I am going to turn into fiction stories because sometimes you want a story to end differently than what it ended in real life. Sometimes someone have to be caught, where in real life nothing was done about it,
yeah,
or
yes,
someone falls in love and then
yes,
they finish these movies sometimes, and I'm like, oh my word, why did they finish the movie like this? I should have written this screenplay.
yeah.
I
Don't
would
let
have
it
ended
get
it
out of me, right?
differently because my
Yeah,
imagination sometimes run wild, and especially because I think I've had so much sadness in my life. I want to turn a sad story into a, a better story. I mean, if you must just look at my life, how bad and how sad my story is. And I'm an international Impact Book Award winner 2 times. And I am a podcast host, and
amazing.
this is what it is about, is turning those sad stories into happy stories because this
Yeah,
world is actually such an amazing world that we have, and we shouldn't always see the bad in it.
yes,
We should
no.
see the good in it, like your story, for instance, today, and wow, when I saw your story, I thought to myself, wow, I need to interview you and introduce you to my viewers. And another South African coming to America, changing changing the path you were on, and starting from scratch again and becoming who you are today. Wow. So, is there anything else that you can tell us about? So, say for instance, someone wants to become a producer or a director. What advice will you give them?
So, I think they are very different paths being a director versus being a producer. So I'll answer the question in in those two parts. And then I also think it depends on, are you based in South Africa versus are you based in the United
Yes,
States?
that is perfect.
So I think I'll start with just generally, if you want to be a director and you whether you're in South Africa or whether you are in America, is you have to direct. And no one's going to offer you an opportunity to direct. The hardest thing to do is to become a director because you have to show that you have the ability to do something. So a lot of directors start as music video directors, commercial directors, they make shorts.
Mm.
If you live in a place like South Africa, you have a lot of resources. South Africa actually has an industry that's very supportive of its upcoming talent. They actually put a lot of, there's some
Wow.
government financing and some bodies and, some local broadcasters, Mnet, they all have programs where they are very supportive of talent.
Wow.
Found that if you are in South Africa, think of yourself first and foremost. Don't think Hollywood. Think, how do I become a big fish in a small pond? How do I get my directing work noticed? And you have a lot of resources now with editing suites, movie magic. You can shoot something on your cell phone. You can use AI tools. You really have, and when I started, we had none of that, right? So I think
Yeah.
if you have a director, your thing that you've got to do is figure out what story you want to tell and direct that, whether you're in South Africa or in America. And if you are in South Africa, don't think I'm going to come to Hollywood and become a director. You can only come here when you've made a film. Make a film, right? For me, someone like Gavin Hook back in the day when he was nominated for his, Oscar and won his for an Oscar for Tootsie, that is what you have to do. Make the best version of a film that you can make and use South Africa's resources, its infrastructure, its industry. Its industry is fairly warm. It's not as cutthroat as America. Use the South African industry, network, build your connections,
Mm.
and make something at home. Same with if you're wanting to be a producer that work and live in South Africa. I always say if you are in South Africa, if I had worked in the South African industry, I think I could have been a bigger fish in a smaller pond. I think I could have acted, I could have directed, I could have worked in theater and TV and in film. I think you can do those things much more easily in the South African industry. And a lot of people have done that. Like one of my good friends is Anel Alexander, and I use her as an example because that girl hustles and she deserves every magazine cover and everything that she works so hard. And she's done it all. She's written, she's directed, she's acted, she's produced,
Mm.
right? And she is a big fish in a
In a
smaller
small
pond.
bowl.
And
Wow.
I think, so I think that could also be enough. You don't have to, that is not, Hollywood is not success. That is major success. Like
Mm.
I think you can do that in South Africa. And sometimes I do look back and go, had I stayed there, would I have been happier or not? Like we all go through that, right?
Yes.
So I do think if you are in South Africa, think about it as there are opportunities. You now have Amazon in South Africa. You now have Netflix South Africa. There's more opportunities than they had been when I
In
tried
the
to make
last years, yes.
something. Yeah. So I think, you have Showmax. You just have and you can get your content out to the whole of African content. The other thing is if you make something in South Africa today, and again, I have a lot of friends who work in the industry, it can be seen by a worldwide audience. That's the beauty of it, right? Like you can make a film, get it on Netflix,
Mm.
and a worldwide audience can see it. It's not that you're just going to be on, SABC 1, 2, or 3 or Mnet as it was back in the days when I tried to
Yes.
break into the business.
Or even YouTube if you want to start out, because there are so many people that is on YouTube. And if your movie or your little short or something can get seen by many, eventually you can just boom.
Yes. And there's always people that you can reach out to who once you've made something, they'll read it and they'll watch it. Because the one thing that people in Hollywood like me will always do is we're always hunting for new stories and content. Every day, I try to find a new story, an article I've read. I try to think about a book that could be a book, a movie, film
Mm,
adaptation.
mm,
I've had a lot of things submitted to me over the years from South Africans. I always look at it. I'm very picky. I have to be very picky. Time is money. And
mm.
very often I'll be like, I really like this, but I don't think I can add value and help you make it. Very often that is just the reality.
Yes.
But you can write a screenplay. Don't just write one draft. Write 20 drafts. Work on your writing. So I think the South African industry offers opportunities. If you live in the United States, it's a little bit different.
Mm,
Again, if you want to be a producer in the United States, I think you either have to use your state where you live, its incentives, and again, make your first film, finance it with love from your friends, try to get it into the Sundance Festival, do some crowdfunding, run around with your cell phone camera, make something. Or you got to come to Hollywood. And this is the hard part. This is the hard thing about this town. It's a very expensive city. It's when I moved here, it was not as insane as it is now. And I think I have a real issue with it because it means very often it's only really affluent people
mm.
kids can now afford to come and rent a place for a year and try to get different jobs. Right.
Yes. I mean, like I said earlier, I was just in Hollywood last week,
Mm.
and being in America now for almost 10 years, I was so shocked to actually pay the prices that Hollywood had to offer for a meal
Yeah.
or a hotel. And then we were on a tour, and the tour bus driver, he told us many stories and how expensive the gas is there. I mean, there you almost pay $5 to $6 for a gallon, where when we left Minnesota on the
Mhm.
2nd of October going to Hollywood, I was looking at the gas price and I was like, oh, 268, that's an excellent price. It's coming down, you know.
Wow.
We were
Yeah,
so
I mean,
shocked.
I feel like in the 15 plus years here, I don't know that I can't remember the last time gas was 268. But I will say that when we first moved here, and again, it's changed a lot because especially post-pandemic, things got even more expensive than before, and rent got a lot more expensive. But when I first moved here, and a lot of my South African friends, I had to explain this to them, our quality of life was a lot lower than it was in South Africa. Like we had to rent a one-bedroom apartment, and we lived in a one-bedroom apartment for 7 years, and then we were able to move into, a two-bedroom apartment. So I think you realize, there was a time when I would cancel cable because I wasn't earning enough money. We didn't buy a daily coffee. We didn't go out to eat. If you were gonna get together with friends, you would try to,
Rather make something yourself or have a barbecue or
yeah.
something.
Yeah, I would just I mean for years I would shop at Ross and TJ Maxx and nowhere else. And I still am a Ross and TJ Maxx girl. So, I think what I realized very quickly is that you just have to look at how you spend your money. And we were very stingy with it because I also knew I had to save up money to travel home to South Africa and see my family. It's always been the priority for me is making sure that we could do that. So, so I think I would say like if you do come to Los Angeles, you have to start as an assistant, and it just means it's entry level jobs. And you just have to you have to be really humble. You can't be like, I've got this really fancy degree, or I've done this great short that went viral. Like you kind of have to be you've got to be like, okay, I might have to make coffee for people. I might have to schedule their kids as eye doctor appointments. You have to essentially be
Yes.
a secretary.
Personal assistant.
Yeah, for a long
Yeah.
time. Every
Yes.
job requires it. And then once you do that, you've got to continue to read. That's probably the single most important bit of advice I can give today, is if you
Yes.
want to work in this industry, is you have to love it. This is not an industry where you come and test the waters. Do I like film? Do I like TV? Do I like to read?
Mm.
Gotta come in and go, I'm pretty sure I want to do this. And I don't mind the struggle. And if that struggle takes a lot of time and a lot of years, it's okay because I like doing it. Like I
Yes, and putting
love,
in that extra time.
yes, I'm a bookworm. So
Mm.
for me, reading screenplays, when I would come home after my assistant job at 8 p.m. at night, I would read, and I would read books and I would read screenplays. And on weekends, very often in the early days of my career, I would have a whole day at home on a weekend or two half a days at home just reading. Or on a Friday night, people might go out and I would read four screenplays.
Wow.
So you put in so much extra time
Yes.
at the beginning, and then you also have to go and network. You've got to go and meet other people, and you constantly have to meet other people. And it never stops. Still today, I don't know the young executives who are now growing up in the industry, so I've got to go out and meet them, right?
Yes.
I constantly have to network. So that's all the stuff you can never stop doing. Reading, watching things, and networking.
Yes, definitely. My little girl, she's an avid reader, and if I look at the amount of books that she already reads, it is not these little thin
Mhm.
storybooks, it's the thick ones. And she's
Mhm.
got the whole series because when she finished one, she cannot stop. She's like, it's
Oh,
like a movie. I have to get the next book, you know?
yes.
And it's unbelievable, the avid readers, because I don't know if you know about the avid readers in school. It is almost like a subject where they also go to like a history class or this class, but it's avid class. And the kids are focused on reading and they're already preparing them. I mean, she just went into grade 9. They're already preparing them to know what they want for when they are going out of school and which college they want to go to.
Mm.
There is just a higher standard of learning in the AVID group or AVID class, you know, and I mean, I can't complain. She's an A student, you know, A plus student, and I would never say that she would have
Right.
been a reader like that. So yeah, that's already something that is important is the reading because I always say to my kids, read and you're going to become more clever because the more you read, the more knowledge is
Yeah.
put into your brain
Yeah.
and you can then work with that. So yeah, wow, reading.
No, I mean that's just it's a part of your life. Like I today, because yesterday we had kids' sports and I was really tired and I just didn't have the energy after a work week. I still have two screenplays that I have to read today, so that just becomes, it's not like that every weekend anymore, but these are two of my projects. So, that's just part of it. Like,
Yeah.
and you're doing the same. You're going to be doing a little work today yourself.
Yes.
Do
It's
it
a
because it's
never-ending
a
story,
hustle.
you know, if you want to do, it's not about work. It's actually about doing what you like.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Well, wow. Ilda, anything else that you would like to tell our viewers?
No, I'm really very appreciative of you having me on your podcast and hearing your story that is so inspiring. And I think, for me, it's a great opportunity to talk to people about the movie. As we know with Netflix, every view counts. Um, they and with this movie in particular, we aren't getting great reviews, which is sometimes really difficult. I think you work so hard on it. I mean, I struggled this weekend. I've worked on it for 4 years, and the reviews come in and they just dismiss it in half hour. It's rough. So I think the ability to have a podcast help to get the word out about a film to
If
an
I can give you a review on the movie, I think I did say something in the beginning of it. I think this movie, The Woman in the Cabin 10, it is an amazing movie. I did not feel like I wanted to stop the movie and watch something else. Um, I did not feel like, oh my word, I already know what's going to happen at the end. It was keeping me intrigued all the time, and to see how people can disbelieve someone of what they saw, and you very quickly put it into your own mind of that's how the real life can be, where people disbelieve you and make you look like you're crazy and you don't know what you're talking about. And how she turned around and her strength, she kept on going back, even if she was going to get into trouble. She kept going back and she kept making her point. And wow, no, I think it is an amazing movie, and definitely highly recommend it to watch.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Joanna. Thank you.
Well, Ilda, it was really nice having you on my podcast and telling your story and being another South African woman. It's not always that we can speak our language and finding people to speak it with. So it was really an honor to have you on my podcast, and I really pray that your movie and everyone who worked hard on that movie, well done. Well
Thank
done. It was really good. And I think you'll get far. It will
Oh,
definitely be viewed by many, I can assure you that.
thank you, thank you. En groot plezier. It was very nice to talk to you today.
Wel, vir my ook, dis altyd lekker om 'n fellow South African op my podcast te hê.
Oh, baie dankie.
Plesier, groot plesier. Well, you are watching Give Me Hope with Johanna. And if this didn't give you a little bit of hope and courage to do what you think you want to do and to put it to action, because if you don't do what you want to do, your dreams are just going to go away. So you have to make your dreams happen. I will be speaking to someone else next week, and also with an amazing stories like this. And I hope that this story inspired you today. Please share it, reach out. You can follow the links at the bottom of the description of this podcast, and you can watch the movie and share. And we will see you next week again. Thank you and goodbye.
This has been Give Me Hope with your host, Johanna Vendel. Join Johanna each week and harness the transformative power of storytelling to facilitate healing and growth.